What you can also do is ask ChatGPT to make you a list of persistence, reconnaissance, and exfiltration. So it will look something like this, right? It'll give you a table, it'll give you some API calls. This is not all inclusive, these are just some, but it does give you a good idea of what could you be looking for. So you can put them on the side or you can put them in a different screen, whatever works for you. Now, the first question is, what is a compromised identity? What they're looking for here isn't user, which they kind of already told us that in the beginning. So the first thing that I did, and I set up the environment for success. I opened all the zip files that I need so that we can move through it rather quickly. The first thing that I did was really just look at one log, a couple of logs to be honest, just to get used to and see what's normal versus what's not normal. From looking at the logs, I see that I am admin. Seems to be a legit user. I didn't see any issues with it, but as I keep looking through the logs, I started noticing that S3 user for some reason was trying to run some commands, was trying to run some API calls that is not allowed to do so. So in this case, for instance, the S3 user was getting access denied because it's not authorized to perform list identities. Why? Because there's not a policy attached that allows this person to list the identities. Now, this will come up as a red flag to me because if you are a legitimate, let's say, S3 user, you've been in the company for a while, you already know or have a good sense of what you're allowed and not allowed to do. Because of that, what I also went ahead and did is that in my same notepad, I wrote little notes, right, as I went through all the logs where there were some API calls that I could match to this list, or if there was something funky, some users that I just did not like, I put them on the side. So for me, this was what I tried as the first question, and that was correct. Now, know that I'm not going to give you all of the answers, but I do want to give you how I thought about it to get to the answers. After that one, what it's asking me is the 3 reconnaissance API calls that the attacker performed using the compromised credentials. So again, we can look at our little cheat sheet and say, okay, what are some reconnaissance? Just so that I can have an idea. So list buckets, list objects, bucket ACL, bucket policy. And if we look at all of the questions, we will start gearing towards some API calls versus the others. Because one of the questions is, what is the S3 bucket that was affected by this attack? So I'm just going to think, right, that the attacker was trying to check protection on this bucket and trying to remove it and trying to exfiltrate whatever object was in this bucket. In AWS, whatever you put in a bucket is referred to as an object. And then at the bottom, we do get a little clue telling us a ransom node. Now, as soon as I hear ransom node, I start thinking, okay, what kind of files could a person, what kind of file extensions? So we'll put PDF, CSV, maybe text file, maybe doc, etc. As I see that question is right on my notepad, I start putting little things that come to mind just so that I can remember. Okay, persistence. Okay, nice. So now that we have that, I went into the second question, which is asking me for reconnaissance call. So what I did is basically the same. Once you open one of these files, what you can do is that you can run a control F and you can search for the API call that you think would make sense. So maybe, and this is just an example, maybe I will do list, but it's not here. Not even list. Maybe get. I get bucket ACL. Okay. Will that be important? Yeah, I will mark it as important because the access control list will tell me who and what has the what and the who permissions of the bucket. So this one I will, if I was starting to do the challenge again, I will take note of it. I will put it on the right hand side. I put it right here and I say, okay, this sounds like a little bit suspicious. So the way you will know what are the last 3 reconnaissance API calls is because after you do your reconnaissance, if the person was able to get in, it was going to perform some kind of attack. So then I will switch to that attack. Now know that in this case, for this one, let me see. I want to see if it was denied or approved. If it's denied, you're going to get the same as we got before. User is not allowed, no policy attached. If it's approved, you wouldn't see that. So what I would do, or what I did, is that I first I classified the API calls that I thought would be suspicious, and then I looked for them. And then the moment that I found the first one is what I used as the first successful reconnaissance API call. And the last three would be the ones before this one. Now, how did the attacker attempt to maintain persistence? Again, I'm going to go to my little cheat sheet and think, okay, if I was trying to maintain persistence, what would I do? I will try to create a user. To be honest, I'm in the AWS environment. I'm going to try to create somebody here so that I can use that identity to do whatever it is that I'm looking for. So what I did, I think it was in here. Oh, and I'm already giving you one of the answers, but basically, once you start getting familiarized with the users, you will see that some of them have really funky names like router, or maybe you'll have some variation of admin, or maybe you have some other silly variation normally has a number in it that professional users will not add. So that's what I did for the other one. In order of occurrence, which users were involved in this persistence attempt. So what it's asking you to do is basically go through the logs and start putting on the side the weird users that you get in order in which you see them. Now, one of the first things that I did is to make sure I put all of my files in chronological order so that I can follow a nice timeline. The other question after that one is, was the persistence attempt successful? Okay, if in this case my choice was to create a user, it will be successful if the user was created. If, for instance, if I am S3 user and I'm able to create the router user, persistence was achieved. But if it gives me an error that says I'm not allowed to create a user, I'm not allowed to invoke this API call, reconnaissance was not successful. So that's what you're looking for. Which S3 bucket was attacked in this attack? Let me see. You know what's funny, guys? I really look for everything and I try to organize it all well, and I lost my things. But right here for the S3 bucket, you will see as you start looking at these files, don't do that. There is really only one S3 bucket that pops out. It keeps popping out all the time, all the time. So that's the one that you're going to choose. There really is just one. What's the next question? How did the attacker check for protection on this resource? Okay, so this one is a little bit tricky, and I'm going to give you guys a hint. It is not on my little cheat sheet. So I had to dive deep a little bit more to find the right API call. So what I did is I went online and I said, okay, which API call will protect a bucket? Which API call will help me restrict permissions for the bucket? And then you're gonna get one that's particularly interesting. I'm gonna give you a little hint and say that in AWS, you're allowed to do something that's called versioning. And what versioning is that if you have an object, or let's say a file, and the file has the picture of your cat, if I go in today and I create my cat file, let's say version 0, and tomorrow I go in and add another picture, it's going to create a different version of it. And what that does is, one, it helps me track and modify changes, and also it makes it a lot challenging for somebody, an attacker, to delete the data or to exfiltrate it, because there are other things with versioning that come along that. I hope that makes sense. These two are related. So as soon as you find out, and I know you guys can, what API call was used for protection, you will 100% find out how to remove it. What file did the attacker exfiltrate? Again, I think here. I did I did exactly what I told you guys I did. I put that .txt or whatever other one I tried first, PDF, CSV, and I started looking for files for all of the results, and I ended up finding this one, ransom note, which is one of the answers that you guys are looking for. I try to keep my videos under 10 minutes, honestly, but if you want more in-depth answers or you want access to some of the cheat sheets that I create for myself, feel free to reach out and I'll gladly send them over. But in general, I do not think this is a hard challenge. I think that what it requires is for you to educate yourselves first. So take your control by educating yourself to have the patience to look through the files, or if you want to, you can use a terminal and use scripts to filter for information. In this case, I chose to do it this way. Sometimes I really just like looking at raw files, but I hope this was helpful in understanding the logic of finding out. Another thing that could help is that you can also start creating a timeline. I love doing that sometimes. I love saying blah, 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 user was created, user created, let's say by, let's say S3 user, and then at whatever this time something else happened, and whatever that time something else happened. I like to create little stories for myself. It helps me a lot to keep track and stay organized. Again, I hope this was helpful. And just as a little proof, let me see if this works. Oh, I did complete all of my challenges, but I hope this was helpful, guys, and have a great day.